we go for episode 28 of On the Bench with Beaks. I am your humble host, Cody, bit of a freak man, Beak Man. I am here with Keats Never Tweets Xanders.
I hate Twitter. Hello, everyone.
and I'm also with Daniel. Can probably Reedy Beatty.
Maybe, I'm not sure.
What's up, everybody?
And then I've got Ross looking all the gore Mormeyer.
Wow. No, yeah, maybe a bit.
All right. Well, anyways, today we are joined by James Crosby, a Bay Area journeyman goaltender. James, thank you for coming on. Say hi to all the nice folks out there.
Absolutely. How are we doing, guys? It's good to be on the podcast. Been listening for a little bit, and always fun to join some fellow hockey minds.
Beautiful. Well, we've got a lot going on. So, where should we start, boys? I mean, we've got a couple of trophy announcements. I mean, I'm just gonna go through a couple of them real quick. I mean, Bruce Cassidy wins the Jack Adams Award. Nathan MacKinnon wins the Lady Byng. Sean Couturier wins the Selke, which
that
was cool.
That was cool, but
that's a really weird way to spell Bergeron.
Right, I know, right?
No.
Yeah, they spelt that totally wrong, didn't they?
Yeah, it's strange.
Interesting. And then you got Bobby Ryan winning the Bill Masterton. What do you guys think? Anything stand out to you guys?
Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon.
Oh, gee, like a Colorado Avalanche fan.
I mean, that's the one. That's the one we talked about. I mean, we talked about all of them, but that's the one.
Hey, that's cool.
That counts.
I mean, it almost seems like a kind of unusual trophy for someone of like an all-star caliber to win, but I think it's really cool to see him win the Lady Byng.
I'm honestly surprised he did win it. Honest to God. I know I wanted him to win it, but the people he was going against.
Well, I mean, just like we said, like Austin Matthews for the Lady Byng, give me a break. You know, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, James? Anything stand out to you in any of those?
I think just Bergeron getting snubbed is the biggest thing. I mean, he's the best, two-way all-around basically defensive guy. But everything else, it's kind of as a goalie myself, I really, the Vezina is really all I pay attention to.
He's like, I don't give a fuck about all this.
It's hard. It's tough too, especially I wish there was a best defensive defenseman category. Because certainly the Norris is not that, even as having a couple of Norris winners on my Sharks. It's very, that doesn't mean that they're very good defensemen, as we saw this year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I'm a huge fan of that movement towards a defensive defenseman award as well, because there's ways that you can look at it logically, like, well, there's one for each way of the offense and defense for the forwards. Why isn't there also for the defensemen? And it's just, I continue to not understand why they don't separate that, especially as defensemen over time have been asked to be more offensively focused. But come playoff time, we're always talking about somebody like Eric Johnson, for example, who's like taken away from your team, that's logging 23 minutes a night, that shuts down that top line. And then we see Joe Pavelski and the Stars score a ton of goals in that series with him out. So
yeah, and well, yeah, we brought that up in the awards episode too. Like maybe do a new one, do the Bobby Orr Award, the best offensive defenseman in the game, and then keep the Norris as strictly defense, which I mean I think all of us would probably say would make the most sense.
Yeah. I agree, because he created the position, and it completely makes sense, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bobby Orr has revolutionized like the ideal of a defenseman. So fuck it, man, make a new one.
Yeah. So James, if we were to call the offensive defenseman award the Bobby Orr award, what would we call like the defensive defenseman award?
Whew. I mean, I think you have to go back to classics, which is not so much my forte. So I might go to you guys, but I would call it the Mark Edward Vlasic as San Jose as long as it wasn't the last 2 years. But pretty much the first 8 of his career, he logged a lot of minutes against the team's hardest guys, and the opposing team's toughest guys, and he was able to shut them down a lot. And but yeah, it's that style player, a guy who doesn't show up on the score sheet a whole lot, but logs a lot of really tough minutes and just gets it done.
The Get Her Done award.
The Get Her Done.
The Get Her Done award.
No, I agree, and I got a soft spot for Vlasic. He helped us win a gold medal, I believe, in Canada. So
I mean, I gotta say, Mark Edward Vlasic is probably the key shutdown defenseman that you could possibly have. I mean, when they were making real runs to the cup, I mean, he was the guy to shut down all those top line forwards.
there was a massive opportunity missed to like when in Florida they'd score and they'd throw rats on the ice.
Oh yeah.
For Vlasic, they should have thrown pickles on the ice. That would have been awesome.
Oh, the blast. Oh, that's pretty clever.
If I was him, I would have just came, grabbed one of those, and just fucking just took a big bite.
Oh,
out
just
of one
like,
of them.
Like
do you guys?
Hammond.
Like,
Yeah. Do you guys remember?
Maybe
when,
that's what it
Andrew-
is. Best
takes the
defenseman award
cheeseburger.
brought to you by Vlasic Pickles.
Right. Yeah, I remember Andrew Hammond when he had that huge.
Oh,
huge
yeah,
stick
the
in the
hamburger
arm.
one.
They would actually throw like
off the ice.
Yeah, I mean,
And he
like,
ate one.
I know. Yeah.
This is
like, okay,
pre-corona, people.
Just
Pre-corona.
take this into consideration. I mean, the guy had to like actually have to go buy this hamburger, right?
Right.
And that's obviously pregame. You're not buying a cheeseburger like halfway through the game. So this guy, this hamburger is literally sitting in this guy's
where's that
pocket
been thinking?
for
right?
an entire game. Probably the walk to the arena, and then like the entire game, only to throw it out onto the ice. And Hammond still fucking picks it up and eats the damn thing. Like I gotta tell you right now, I think I'd rather eat cat food than that damn cheeseburger. And it looked like a McDonald's cheeseburger.
It
so,
It was.
So yeah,
he
you're
got
not,
he
you're
got
not very
free
far away.
McDonald's for a year from the
No, he
local
did. He
Ottawa
did.
McDonald's, which might explain his performance the following year.
Oh
but,
God, yeah,
like,
right.
oh my God, it was so funny. Like, and I know there's some guy in Detroit right now being like, I fucking put an octopus down my pants for 3 periods
Right,
back in the
Or
90s.
or the guys
Don't
out-
tell me about a cheeseburger.
Or the guys in Nashville, they're putting big old catfish
Yeah.
down their
Yeah,
pant legs and
what the
stuff.
hell?
It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, how are you getting through security with a big old catfish down your pants? That's what I
Ma'am,
wanna
don't
know.
worry. It might get excited. I'm kidding.
Ever meet the Elephant Man? That's who I am.
Yeah, exactly. Kickstand.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, right.
It's like 2 eggs in a hanky.
And this is how Corona started.
People with gigantic catfish
job.
walking around in their fucking pants.
job.
All right, so we're 10 minutes in, totally on script.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. That was all written
Yep.
out, everybody. So just know that the somebody actually thought about this before we started talking about it.
Totally.
Yeah. So as we move down the line, so we're well into the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. We just did a breakdown of that. I want to get James's opinion on all that's going down. So just a quick rundown. What's it looking like on the western slope there, James?
That's are we going with the as far as like Western Conference Finals?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
is that where we're going? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Dallas and Vegas.
I'm very torn because as a Sharks fan, I hate Vegas. I love that I really thought Pete DeBoer got a rough ride over here, and
Oh, yeah, that's
the
right,
one
no.
thing that the one thing that I've enjoyed seeing him is he went from having 0 goalies who could make a save to 2 pretty good goalies, but and watching Leonard and Flower just kind of compete for that number one spot and all the drama that's been going on in that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been enjoying
yeah.
it because I really want Vegas to not make it to the finals again. The hard part about that is watching, Corey Perry anywhere near the
easy.
Stanley Cup finals. And so whenever I can do that, but I've got Joe Pavelski, so I've got to be rooting for Dallas. I've been really impressed by Kuldobin just showing up, showing out. Kind of coming out of getting out of Ben Bishop's shadow, literally, because that guy's a giant.
Oh,
Yeah, literally.
and really just making a name for himself. But it's been fun to watch. I think as long as Dallas continues to, I think they're built to take out Vegas because their stars are big boys. It's not a Johnny Goodrow, I have to skate around everybody and score. It's I can get my nose in there, I can grind, and that's how you're going to get goals against Vegas.
fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Make a good case.
Yeah.
For sure.
What do you call the series at? I'm wondering.
I think it's going to go 7. I think they're two very well matched teams, but I think really with Ben and Sagan, and I know that is it Ben's on the fourth line now, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that gives a team depth because any shutdown guys that Vegas has, they're trying to get them rest when I've always been more scared of balanced teams than top heavy ones. And I think that you can get a lot done with a really effective fourth line as far as putting teams off their game, maybe getting, a couple points here and there that puts the Stars on the other team behind.
And to prove your point, didn't he get a goal last night on the fourth line?
Could have been.
I think so. Yeah, I think he did. But yeah, he's contributing points from the fourth line is always a good sign for a team. And I just think that going a full 7 games, I think the Stars are going to outlast them for their depth from top to bottom, as opposed to the big Stars on Vegas. That's a little bit more top heavy.
So yeah, you're gonna have 2 big bodies going after each other, Jamie Benn and Ryan Reeves on those fourth lines.
Yeah, one of those guys can score goals.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the other one can't. All right, so let's look at the Eastern then. You got Tampa Bay and New York. What's your status on that?
I think it's gonna go 6, and that is just out of sheer respect for Trotz. I think that Tampa Bay outclasses them in every position except for coach, and I think Trotz will be able to frustrate Tampa Bay. They might get a hot start from a goaltender, and Vasilevsky. He occasionally has his off game. I think it's going 6, but I think Tampa Bay easily wins it. I don't think they're ever going to really sweat.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus around the bench of beaks.
Mm-hmm. I'm starting to get legit scared that the Lightning are going to win the cup.
It's like looking like that every day, more every day, I would say.
Well, and even if I don't even know, is Point even in this game right now? Or is he?
Yeah, so we're watching game 3 right now.
Yeah.
And we don't know if Point's playing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a huge loss, but I mean, they've got so many guys, like filler guys that can make up for that
I'm
whole
not
entire.
worried about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
that's what
That's what's
scary.
scary. Yeah, exactly. He's the number 1 guy in the league now with points.
Yeah,
and he just went down, and it's like none of us are sweating it. We're all like 5 games, 6 games.
Oh yeah, well, and they're without once again Stamkos, and they're still firing on all cylinders, and that's just ridiculous.
Yep, any team that can lose Stamkos and just absolutely run through Boston, is going to be scary in the playoffs. And I thought Boston was going to be their best challenge for if they were legit or not. They got through Columbus, which was really exercising the demons.
Sure.
But when you get into Boston is typically a heavy playoff team. They're going to hit you hard. They're going to grind you up. They're going to get their dirty goals. And the fact that they were able to kind of more or less walk through them, unscathed, was a true test to them being really built well for the playoffs.
Yeah, they had more trouble with Columbus than they did with Boston. It was just like, oh yeah, well, we'll just brush you aside. But I mean, the last time they met Boston in the playoffs, it was kind of the same way too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Tampa's really ever had too much of a problem with Boston, even in the playoffs. But I mean, that for them, I think that's just another stepping stone for them.
And it was also kind of just fine tuning a little bit of like few things, honestly, boys.
Yeah.
Like that's like they weren't missing huge like key players or like cogs in the whole entire machine, but you just have to get those perfect people that just fit like every aspect of what you need on certain lines. And sometimes you go for gold, or sometimes you just lose it all.
Make sure everybody drinks the juice.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, now that we got all the NHL and news from that little realm of the world, we want to hear about James Crosby. James, can you just start us off? An early Crosby, a little child Crosby getting into hockey, and kind of tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is I actually played baseball into college and played a couple of years in college. So I was really I was very focused on baseball growing up and never really had much to do with hockey. Occasionally people would have a birthday party at an ice rink or something and we go around holding the edge. But really didn't spend too much time on the ice until, and I really I started to get more into it when the Sharks were making a couple runs in like 02, 03. I was in high school then, and really started to respect hockey and pay attention to it more because the guys had in baseball, you say a 5-tool player, you've got to have all the different tools, and you look at these guys where they're huge, they're physical, they have to have endurance, they have to have hand-eye coordination, they have to have explosive speed. And it was just truly impressed with the athleticism. So I started watching hockey and became a huge fan in 02, 03 and attached myself to the Sharks. But it really wasn't until about 5 years ago, so about 2015, when one of my friends started just in the adult leagues. He started playing hockey, and he went through just a 12-week course that they do, and then whoever takes the course with you becomes your team.
Oh, cool.
And you enter in the lowest level.
And
that's really
I
neat.
went to one of his, yeah. So it's nice that everybody you practice and learn how to play hockey with is also your teammates on your first team.
Oh,
And
yeah.
And when they got into it, so I went to one of his games, and with me playing baseball, I watched his goalie give up 6 goals that said, I haven't been on the ice in 10 years, but I could lay on my side and just with my glove hand stop more shots than that. And so my buddy
shortstop
basically-
skills, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So my buddy basically said, well, just put your money where your mouth is. Let's go. Like, I'd love to have you out there. And so, it came down to it. I ended up, buying some gear off Craigslist and buying some from a hockey shop and some from here and there and pieced it together. And started going to skate and shoots, which I learned as a goalie is like being on the wrong end of bukkake.
Oh my God.
You're just taking it from every angle, whether you're expecting it or not. And I had some doubts then. But what happened was we had an ice rink near me that would on Thursday nights, they would do an hour of coach run practice, and then it would break down into an hour of scrimmage. And that hour of practice was really crucial for me to work on my footwork, work with the other goalies there, saying like, hey man, I have no clue what I'm doing. Can you show me how to butterfly push? And them kind of teaching me and working their way through it. And once I ended up landing on a low level team. And then after a year of playing low level, I got there was a goalie that went out from a knee injury in the upper levels, and the owner of the league kind of gave me the shoulder tap and said, hey, look, I know you're in the lower leagues. He says, you're going to get lit up for a little while. but I know you're athletic enough to do this. And so my first year in the higher leagues, I think I gave up 7 a game. But by the end of this, yeah, it was rough.
But just
my
think,
teammates,
you got to give
give 'em
up 7
credit,
goals, and there was some guy in the stands who was playing baseball and being like, "Bitch, I can give up less goals."
Exactly.
So you paid it forward. So there you go.
Exactly. I absolutely show. Maybe I ignited another goalie, and I did have a couple teammates that said, "Hey, I should play goalie after this."
And without the Bukkake film as well.
So yeah,
Yes.
so are you stuck on being a goaltender? Because I can hop in there if you want.
And didn't you have your gear like stolen, and then you're like, screw this, and you went across the from the rink, bought gear, and then played that night or something like that?
Yeah, that happened one time where I was so I used to dry my gear in the back of my truck. I had a tonneau cover, and when I would get to work, we have a pretty quiet parking lot at work. So I would just pop open the tonneau cover, kind of let it air out, at least all the sweat, give it a little spray down with some disinfectant, and it was good to go for the next week or whenever I was playing next. And yeah, so I never really thought anything of it because I had been doing it for a year or two, and
Who would
I showed
steal
up to the rink
smelly
one
goalie
time.
gear anyway, man?
I think people just see it and they know it's valuable, and so they think they can huck it at a pawn shop or something. But really, nobody wants whatever. I was joking with some other goalies that like if you can wear your gloves, for how many years without washing them, you're probably good from Rona. Your immune system's built up to the point where yeah, you can kind of you'll survive.
I think
But
mainly like a lot of hockey players can say that, because I haven't met a lot of hockey players that are just like very willing to just go out and just clean their gear all willy-nilly. I mean,
Oh man, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be better by the second period because the crusty gloves have finally loosened up.
yeah,
a little
it's
bit.
like, oh yeah, I finally got a good layer of sweat going, so they're not crusty at all. But I mean, for me, it was just, oh, go ahead, sorry, man.
sorry, man. No. I absolutely, I used to have the crusty glove, which as your trapper, as a goalie, you want to be able to squeeze that thing and the puck stay in there.
Oh yeah,
And I realized that, it was just better to hose it down basically and get it wet before the game with my water bottle, rather than actually, loosen it up or do anything. And so it's just you find the easiest method to get it to where you want it to be, and you accept the added weight from it.
Truth. And you're a big equipment guy just in general, right? Like, this is what I appreciated about talking to you a little bit, about just like how much you can love equipment. Cause I remember just always killing time in the pro shops, before or after the Zamboni was out there, and accidentally just learning about like all the stick technology that was out, or the newest pads that were coming out. And you really like that side of hockey too, because its advantages, right?
Absolutely. And it really comes down to preference. And that's the cool thing that watching the pros and watching my favorite thing to do whenever I go to a game, because I do travel a lot for work, and I try to watch hockey in as many different barns as I can, because every barn has its own feel and it's always so amazing. And I love going to a Detroit Pittsburgh game in a Sharks jersey and people just being so dumbfounded about why is this guy here.
who the fuck is this guy?
You're on the
Who
wrong
is this
track.
guy? Is he lost?
Wrong night, bro.
Wrong side of the
But
tracks,
it's
brother.
actually led to so many good, interactions with people, and that's the fun thing about the hockey community. I went to school in Southern California, also used to go to Kings games and Ducks games as much as I could, and the amount of people that were just embracing about it. If you're a good fan who, when your team scores, you stand up, you cheer for a couple seconds, you high five whoever you're with, and then you sit down. People are great about it, and I've had so many just great experiences and having fun banter with people all across the country. And that's why I actually bring my jersey when I'm traveling to wherever in the country, just because, and I know I'm going to a game, is because it starts really fun conversations. And especially when we're in the Eastern Conference, nobody really cares about the Sharks. Nobody hates the Sharks out there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
True.
it's just it's more of a just fun conversation, fun conversation starter, and it's led to a lot of really fun kind of just interactions.
That's great. That's really great to hear because I mean, maybe some of us may, maybe not be able to like travel to other places, but I'm kind of guilty of this. Like, when I go to Avs games and I see some guy in, just some random hockey jersey that of the teams that are not playing that night, I'm always the guy like, wrong night, bro. So it's I've been guilty of that. Depending on how many vodka tonics I've had that night. But I mean that's really cool to hear actually that it actually sparks a better response than I would have thought.
Absolutely, and it comes down to also just loving hockey. It's like I was really a fan of God. I hate to admit it, but when I was a kid, I was such a fan of the Fox broadcast and the light up puck and the little guys that they had. I know. I hate to admit it now because I cringe anytime I see it. But when I was a kid, that was the coolest thing in the world. As somebody who didn't watch hockey, I watched hockey to watch the flames behind the puck as it was as laser, from the blue point. And it worked. I'm one of the kids that was attracted to the game from that gimmicky setup. And I think that one thing that people are really appreciating. I know we had this run with my boss. He wasn't a big hockey fan because he hadn't watched it in so long, and now that the definition is so much better on television than the broadcast, is that when the Sharks made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, he kind of tuned in to have something to talk with me about, and he just mentioned that it is so much easier to follow the game now than it ever was in the past. And that's because tracking the puck was nearly impossible when with the aspect ratio and with the definition of the cameras and the broadcast. And so that there's a lot more hockey fans because the game is so much easier to follow from at home.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to watch the game on your 30-inch like Zenith tube, like have to get up and change the knob kind of channel changer kind of thing. I remember back when I was a kid, I think it was about the same time as that. We had like a 30-inch like TV that had wood paneling around it, and we would have to
the speakers built in.
Yeah, and
that was the surround sound.
And we would have to we would literally push all of the couches so close to the screen to be able to even have a chance and know what's going on, just because the picture and all that. So yeah, I fully agree there. And I mean the puck tracking, man, my gosh, that was so weird. That was a life.
That was like, what a time. Like now all I can think about it are those Fox robots that like would have hockey sticks and be animated
exactly.
before the game would start. And then like as a hockey like you could see when like it wasn't being used, like it would have a glow around it, and you'd like see it in the first two rows of the fans when it was on the bottom boards of the arena, and you're like, but now it's like, it's really nice to hear people like, I want to see the red. Let me see the red. Like I want a fast shot here.
Oh, I heard, I believe that, like, this past season, I think the LA Kings had, like, a 90s retro night where they actually brought that back.
That's so cool.
They actually used that.
I heard that they were talking about doing that, so that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here we go.
Yeah, I did see that.
Well,
I do like when the NHL.com occasionally does the the old Gretzky game highlights where the old like Sega Genesis hockey games where they put the little star around the player with the puck and stuff like that, and do the laser shot where they do those retro edits on real footage. It's always fun to see. It brings back a lot of nostalgia.
All right, so check this out. This is the first time that we've actually had two goalies in the laboratory at once. So I think we're gonna get a little tendy tandem here. Keats, what do you got for us, bud?
Oh man, there's so much stuff I could talk about. I mean, you guys been kind of going back and forth. I've been sitting here all quiet because I'm
Let it
just like,
fly.
Just
uh,
well, here's
I
your
don't-
chance, man. Be a star.
well, no, man. I mean, like I know you kind of shared a story. You know how like, can you like maybe elaborate more, like why the goalie position was more appealing to you than maybe being a forward or a defenseman or anything like that?
I am guilty of this, and I 100% knew that being a goalie is a big investment up front, because the pads and the helmets and everything like that, it's so much more expensive to be a goalie than it is a player. And there's so few people that are seeking to get hit by the puck, that you can find ice time whenever you want, and that's even in this whole kind of COVID situation we're in. I get to play, the occasional skate and shoots and things like that because people just want a goalie to shoot on.
The bukkake
And
sessions.
so they,
Oh,
yeah,
God,
exactly,
back to
exactly.
that. Yes.
Yeah, and but it's one of those things where I knew that okay, I'm gonna drop $3,000 out the door, but you know what? I'm not gonna have to pay $500 league fees,
Truth.
every 6 months, and so it was more of an investment. The one thing that I didn't factor in is wanting to buy new gear all the time.
Gearhead
So
syndrome.
I think
Yeah.
I'm still at a net loss, but as far as I consider it an investment in fun. And whenever the fiance gets on me about buying new gear, I just tell her it's for my safety, and I can usually get a pass that way.
Oh, dude, I'm with you. I mean, I'm guilty, man. I'm guilty with the gear. I am. I think of myself as like a Artur Zerbe that you should
Of
know
course.
because you're
The
old school
Latvian
shark
goalie.
guy.
Yeah.
Cause I'm from Latvia. I was born and raised there for a very
Like
long
Wall.
time. Yeah, exactly. And I have a very hard time with like new equipment, man, and I kind of want to pick your brain about it. For example, like I know you kind of elaborated on the gear a little bit. Like my girlfriend was nice enough to buy me some new pads, this last Christmas, some Bauer S27s, because I've been rocking Reebok 5Ks for like the last, God, I don't know how many years, like through like my high school time. So they were, I don't know when they came out, in like 2004 or something like that. And she got me these new pads, man, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I freaking hate them.
You are gonna get your ass kicked so bad by Carissa after this.
It just,
Sorry, go
I know, I appreciate them. They're super light. Like the quick Velcro and all that. But like, I'll be honest, man. Like, I hate where the new gear's going these days. I like the old straps. I like to be able to, strap my pads, with old belts. I like something that bends at the knee. That doesn't feel like a cardboard box on your legs. What's your perspective on the gear these days?
I especially
Remember,
because it's
you're
only been 5
engaged,
years.
James, so answer accordingly.
I will, and that's okay because I fund all my own purchases, so I'm clear to speak freely. But I do agree, especially the Bauer line just feels like cardboard wrapped in leather. I understand that it's light and that appeals to some people, but I started in a pair of Reeboks. God, I wish I could bring model number. And then I went to Brian's Net Zero from there, and those also felt cheap. And right now, I'm in a pair of CCM, actually Carter Hutton's Pro Spec pads from when he was in St. Louis. And it's one of those things where he, and if we can get into this later too, is his style is more. He doesn't have a super wide butterfly, which is why the break, they're almost, goalie pads have double break for people with narrow butterflies where it kind of closes the 5-hole for you, or a single break, which is just kind of a single angle which is for more of these guys that can do the splits right when they wake up out of bed. And yeah, I'm not that flexible, and so I needed something with a little bit more bend to it. Whereas your Bauer pads are a single, I believe they're a single break most of the time, and it's just and they're great for the one aspect I like about it, especially in beer league, is you can launch rebounds in them and get it out of the crease. You know, if somebody takes a clapper and you can get a leg on it, you can send that thing right back out to the blue line and have time to readjust. But my Reeboks, my first pair of pads I had, they were super soft, and I really struggled with that, especially in the lower leagues, because if a puck hit me, and especially when you're new to the game, you're not used to where the puck goes after it hits you. You're kind of reacting to it. You don't have as much of a feel for it. And so, and even now, I think probably just as learning the position and playing hockey later in life, I prefer to send the puck as far as possible, just because at least I can get eyes on it. And that was, I even went from all white gear, my first set, to all black gear, which was a huge mistake. I got a couple really quick whistles, and I think I had one where a guy on a breakaway, the ref was trailing, and he snuck it 5-hole in me, but it hit off the back bar and went right under my pads, and the goalie or the ref never saw it. Because I remember him just losing his mind and me just showing the puck between my legs. And,
what?
the
I
ref
got it the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. You just act like you got it, and you kick it out to the corner, and let the ref restart it with the face-off. But yeah, it's very interesting the way that certain goalies, they attach themselves to a certain style, and I think that that's also changing some of the trend with younger goaltenders in the NHL. You look at Binnington winning it last year, and what happened is you look at some of these older goalies of Patrick Waugh and like Evgeny Nabokov out here, where these guys were kind of in the stand-up game, and towards the end of their career were playing butterfly. Whereas now you get kids that from when they were 4 years old have been playing butterfly goalie, and their game is more tuned. You have to think of pros adjusting at the highest level is always going to be more awkward than somebody who's grown up doing it their whole life. And I think that that's where there's certainly this resurgence in very young goaltenders doing very well in the playoffs, is that some of these older guys, maybe started in more of a stand-up style when they were kids, and maybe when they were 12, 13, 14 started doing something different. But the guys who are growing up, that are only in their early 20s, have been playing one style their whole life. And I'm actually interested to see, as we see, offenses adjust to so many goalies covering low so well, what they're going to do. And there's actually, in a couple of the goalie forums I'm in, kind of this whole hate on the butterfly style, because if somebody would have been standing up and reacting to the shot, it would have been the matter of moving, your arm or your shoulder 3 inches to make the save, as opposed to somebody trying to kind of flail and get a piece of your equipment in front of it and deflect it. So it's interesting to see the progression of the game as the offenses adapt to the goalie style, and vice versa, where I feel like offenses adapt to the goalies, and then the goalies adapt to the offenses, and it's kind of this game, this cat and mouse game, where they're always chasing each other, but it's very fun to follow.
No, absolutely. I'm with you, man, and it's interesting. I agree with you. It's super interesting to see like how much the goalie game has advanced, like you mentioned. I mean, when you even go back and watch like like the old school goalies,
from like Cheevers to
exactly,
like
Cheevers
to Hextall to
exactly.
Waugh.
I mean, watching like someone like Cheevers, obviously like legend, right? But like his playing style is like not to like bash or be disrespectful anyway, but you watch some of those old school guys, and it's like, holy crap, like this is almost like how I see half of these beer leaguers play right now. Like they'd be
no
killer
wonder
NHLers.
They were scoring, and the Art Ross guy was getting 150 points a season.
And then obviously you go, years later on, and you start improving, and then you start seeing the butterfly and like more like technique to it, like putting the knee down and like all these different new styles. And I'm sure, like, honestly, the big reason behind all that is the gear.
Yep.
Because the more the gear advances, the more it gives you more options essentially to like be a different style of a goalie and try these different forms. Because I think back in the day, like the way they played was kind of like, like if I do this, I might not get as hurt.
Yeah.
If I stop it.
Yep.
Because think about it, man. Like all they had was like strapped on pillows, really.
Basically.
There wasn't really much protection.
I mean, fuck, no
Yeah.
goalie wore a face mask until Jacques Plante. That was like the 60s?
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about even like
And that's fresh 60s.
we're talking about goalies taking advantage of technology in years. Like even if they did absolutely nothing to pads, they changed the material that absorbed water less, that made the pads lighter, that allowed them to do the exact same thing. But that's not the only thing that happened, right?
Yeah, and even like the style of the glove, look at an old school glove.
It looks
Yeah.
like an actual like
It's like a
outfielder's
mitt.
Yeah.
And
With like
the size of it too.
with a little extra leather on the wrist, basically.
Yeah, it's
Oh, that was the Louisville TPS. I think they had like a cheater kind of web
Yeah.
between your thumb to your
I
to your
remember those.
forearm, where that thing was you could block out the sun with that thing.
Yeah.
It was and that's where it's interesting to see the regulations the NHL is putting on the equipment and
Mhm.
what way they want to go, because obviously they want more scoring,
Mhm.
but there's also a safety factor in
Mhm.
now that these carbon fiber hybrid sticks, it used to be, one or two guys could get it into the high 90s with a clapper. And now you look at any fourth liner that leans into one and they can get it up around 100 miles an hour. I'd love to see Bettman, anytime he makes any kind of gear adjustment, he has to take 5 Shea Weber slap shots in the gear he's recommending
God,
before he
wouldn't
can
that be
approve it.
nice?
Oh yeah, no, you want to make it a pay-per-view, do whatever. The NHL could make hand over fist, because I know a lot of people that would love to see Bettman take one to the chest from Weber.
Especially if it's a charity event. I'd bid money to take a freaking clapper
Oh.
to Bettman.
I'd pay high dollars
All right.
just to see it.
You're
happen.
touching on something else that I actually need to talk about that I love about the technology advancement too, because I read a report in The Atlantic when Ryan Miller was playing about how during his career, he's one of the last goalies in the league that had to deal with the evolution of the technology, but not in goalie, but from player, from the wood to composite stick. And he was talking about how as a goalie, you're trying to pick up on these last micro fraction second things. And what was so hard for him to adjust during his career was the fact that the kick point on a stick was different for a graphite stick. So he would have players barreling down on him, and he'd need to remember if they used wood or composite for like a few years of his career where it was transitioning, because it affected how quickly or how the shot would come off a stick. And I can imagine as you're trying to evolve your style, having to deal with something like that introduced in the league is something that I think is being underrated as a goalie as well. So
Absolutely, and I could see that with that change, because some guys have more dead sticks, or they don't have enough weight to really lean into they buy the top of the line sticks, but they buy the same flex that their favorite player, who's 6'6" and 240 pounds, leans into, and they're sitting there at 5'6", maybe 5'6", 180, and they just can't get the flex on it. But I've seen a couple guys really lay into it, where slap shots, they look like they used to come off the stick clean. Whereas, guys that can really lean into it from the point, when you see that thing kind of scoop the puck up, that the angle might be different, and it's going to get on you quick. And so when you see those certain guys lean into it, I absolutely know that it looks different. And there's also some guys too, where they've gotten me on a changeup because beer league, sometimes guys have their nice stick and then they have their backup stick, which was made in the 1980s.
I'm still using my Easton Stealth from early 2000s.
Yeah, and you'll see if they break their quote unquote nice stick, they're in the game, and then all of a sudden the puck starts coming off their stick much different. I understand that, and as Ryan Miller on a higher level, that it does look different, and you get used to the way that certain guys' shots look. Because you start to expect something of them, and when it comes off different, it can really cross you up because it's all about timing, and it's trying to be at the right angle at the right time in order to make the best save that you can. And that's where certain guys, a change of a stick or a change of anything like that can really kind of screw up that timing, and it can cause some ugly looking goals.
Yeah, and kind of to talk about a little bit more about sticks, because that brings up a whole other thing too. Like, just brings me back some memories and stuff. Have you, James? Have you? I know you said you didn't play for a long time. Have you had an experience with like a wood goalie stick before?
I do. I have my. That's typically my beer league stick. Is this heavy piece of lumber that when I swing that thing across the crease, it gets clear.
Oh yeah.
It is. I've got my carbon fiber nice stick for my upper level league games and whatnot, and I usually play with that one. But my backup stick is absolutely a log, and that thing is great for, especially when the puck is sitting there in the crease, or if somebody's trying to do a last minute move and I decide to go for the poke check. I know that if any part of my stick not only hits the puck but hits their stick, that it's going to disrupt them enough to really give me a split second in order to kind of react. And I actually use that stick against some of the heavier teams that like to put bodies in the crease. As I played for 3 years in the league that I was in, you get to know a lot of the other guys you play against. You get friendly with them. You know what their tendencies, what they like to do. And on those heavier nights sometimes, or even in between periods, I would change sticks if it was just going to be one of those kind of nights where we're having a heavier stick. It wasn't so much about my blocker reaction as it was of getting the puck out and being able to kind of swing that thing around and really, if I connected with something, disrupt their timing, whether it be the puck, their stick, or their foot. Because they're also pretty lenient on goalies with tripping.
No, I'm with you, man. That's super interesting because the reason I asked was because it reminds me, like in my younger days when I played, there's this Bauer stick, and I remember, I wish I remember what model it was, but it was one of the sticks that my dad got me a long, long time ago when we still lived in Europe, and it was a all wood stick, and it was heavy as shit. And it was one of my favorite freaking sticks, man. And I what I liked about it was some of the things that you mentioned, poke checks, things like that. You really, you were able to do it with no questions asked. And it also, one thing is, what I can say with the newer sticks is they're so light these days. Sometimes when I'm playing, I catch myself not having the stick fully on the ice because it's just like so light, and those old school sticks, they're fairly heavy to where you're almost like they're just on the ice. You know what I mean? Because they're just like, you just feel them. You know what I mean? And that's what I really liked about them. And honest to God, if I could find that stick today, I would 100% buy it.
Maybe
Absolutely.
Maybe you could find a lumberjack to fashion you a new goalie stick.
Right,
eh?
and I talked about this was in one of our way earlier episodes that I talked about that Bauer stick. Like,
yeah. I remember that. I think that was the hat trick actually.
Yeah, and then
This is his rosebud.
and it's just again, man,
Playing the long
like
game.
that stick. I think I'll remember that stick for the rest of my life. My dad was able to get 2 of them, and then they ended up getting discontinued for whatever reason, but I loved them, and they lasted forever. That's another thing.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm just gonna throw my hat in the ring here real quick. I know you boys are getting real excited about goalie gear and stuff, and the thing is, for a while when I was playing, when the composite sticks came in, I kind of always thought like, well, why? And this was before they actually really started making goalie sticks out of like composite and stuff like that. And I kind of thought about it for a little bit, and I was like, well, why wouldn't they make composite goalie sticks? And then I kind of, I don't know. I was thinking about it all through practice because I was like up in the pro shop looking around, looking at goalie sticks because I don't know. I was, anytime I went and looked at my own kind of sticks, I'd always go check out the goalie sticks and wear the goalie gear and like imagine that I was a goaltender, because I never got a chance to actually ever really step in the net. And so I would just go up to the pro shop and like pretend I'm a fucking goalie or whatever. And but I digress. So I actually started thinking about it. I was like, well, I don't really think you'd want to have a composite stick as a goaltender because, I mean, you get so much stick work and like you got to have a strong stick as a goaltender. I think really would be so much better of a way to go just for its durability and for a lot of reasons of what you guys actually just noted, So I was kind of...
Yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing how it's like one of the maybe not completely favorite new forms of technology that has come out of the NHL.
Yeah.
Or hockey.
Yeah.
I remember those weird ones too where like the grip right above where the paddle would end for goalie sticks was like almost art. So
like
it was
The
like
Curtis curve.
yeah, what the
curve.
what was going on there? Like that was weird.
It's funny because there's a couple beer leaguers and guys that in goalie forums that I'm in that absolutely love them, and they're perfect, and it's nice because you have a good grip on it, and it works for lower levels because you don't have to be able to really play the puck.
Okay.
It is really great for guys that are in a beer league where it's comfortable for covering their 5-hole and they can kind of maneuver it a little bit, but you don't need to move the puck on the highest level. And I think that something that I really appreciate watching like an Alex Stalock or some other goalies, Pecorine, who can just kind of catch the puck, put it on the floor, and then get it moving upwards, where you can give your offensive chances where sometimes guys are sleeping because they think the goalie's not going to do anything. And you can all of a sudden flick it up the blue line, and then they've got a forward just crashing on them. It can really, and it also keeps defensemen back because when they know that a goalie can really play the puck and put it where they want to, at least one of those defensemen has to hang back because you never know when the puck's going to get, all of a sudden be up in your end. So I really have an appreciation for watching the NHL guys play the puck, but it's more of I think it was people tried it out and it works for lower, what works for lower level doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to translate to the highest level.
Yeah, I always saw that as like the equipment gimmick equivalent of, for a player, the Nike stick that had holes in it. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
It was like, oh, my stick has speed holes, so I'll be able
But
to
that's
like.
coming back again.
Why?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I don't know, but it's coming back.
I needed your opinion on that, James, because I was like, what? Why did that exist? That makes sense, though.
Yeah, I was always really curious about that too. It's just like, to be completely honest with you, I'm kind of like, just like I said in the introduction, I'm a bit of a freak, man. So, so I might, if I was a goalie, I probably would have definitely tried one of those out. So like, is there an actual reason for it?
And is it called the Curtis curve after Cujo, or?
Because I remember Cujo. I always noticed this. He always actually, whenever he'd play the puck, he'd switch his stick around. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Shoot with his top.
Yeah,
hand,
Roman
like,
Cechmanek was the same way.
Yeah.
He had to like flip it over. And
he
I noticed
shot right.
so many goalies now, it's almost like you can't do that anymore.
No,
The sport has gotten so fast. We don't like goalies that have to do that.
Well,
we want
it's-
you to like play the puck on the same side you hold your stick.
Yeah, and I always thought that was the weirdest thing because Cujo was pretty much like the only one that I don't remember Czechmonic doing it,
But they were good at it though.
oh yeah,
So
I
it was
mean,
like, why are we not allowed? Why do
Yeah.
you want to phase this out? Like, we're fine.
yeah, because for a while I thought that, well, I guess that's how all goalies do it, you know, like if you have to shoot right but you catch left, you just switch it around. But I never noticed anybody else doing that.
Yeah, it's one of those really weird things where it comes down to a preference, and I think that it's me coming up through the beer leagues and without having coaching, and that's part of why I don't play the puck a lot, is because it's a 50-50 whether I'm going to send it down the ice or if it's going to just sit right in the crease. So when I've got a forward bearing down on me, I always tell my guys, if I skate out of the blue, we're in trouble. And that's just because I am a goalie
I'm out of my
because
element.
I like reacting. But yeah, I've absolutely gone into the corner to try to, when we're on a power play, I've gone into the corner for a puck, and then you go to flick it up ice, and all of a sudden, the puck's right there at your feet, and the forward's, a couple feet away from you, and you have this weird kind of like, bring me back to my blue paint feeling, like I'm not safe out here. And you try to start skating back, and things just get weird. Things get weird. Defensemen get in the net. It's all bad. And so, but there is, I think that when the goalie sticks were changing, people were trying out different things to try to make them work, but being able to flick them around. And I can say from goofing around, it was more comfortable for me to put my trapper on the end of the stick and use my right hand, especially being a baseball player, even though my stick was flipped around, being a, left-handed trapper, right-handed blocker goalie, is that was felt more comfortable to me, but I would never have the time. And so if I had a flatter curve or a stick that would allow me to do that, I would absolutely do that if I had the time. But it just comes down to practice and repetition with anything. And it always comes down to comfort, because your number one goal is to keep the puck out of the net, not to assist the offense. So that's really what it comes down to, is just whatever's comfortable for you. And that's where there are some different styles. And I think especially in that era, people were playing around with it. But I think most goalies, just because they've been doing something a certain way from childhood, is that just what they're comfortable with. And that's why you don't see it as much anymore.
I think it's cool that the goalie position is a little bit more unique, where you have a little bit more control picking your equipment to dictate your style of play than like a defenseman or forward, where really all I can really change is maybe like the flex of my stick or like how I use it. But it's not like I can alter my shin pads or my elbow pads.
Yeah.
I can really only put on like an extra clear layer of protection over my skates to block shots and stuff. I'm not like really looking at a lot of my equipment choice dictating based on my style of play,
Or performance.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I definitely goalies have more. I mean, there's more gear and all that, but I must say when it comes to players too, like obviously sticks are huge for players. That's like, I think that's like the number one thing, and maybe number two would be skates.
Oh yeah,
There's
That's
a
what I was gonna
million different types of skates. Comforts, wider boots, like that sort of thing. I mean, in a way, I think the players have a lot too. It's just a tad bit different,
it's
man. Even when it comes to elbow pads and stuff, there's a million different styles
Well,
That's
might
true.
fit better for
Kind of
You're
like
right.
soft
whatever type
shell
of
and
a player
hard
you
shell
are.
elbow pads. I think
That's
the biggest.
true.
I think for me
Sell
the biggest
myself short.
the biggest thing as a player is really like shields, like face shields.
Oh yeah.
Because
Good point,
Yes.
too.
I mean,
Yes.
Cage
I've,
shield,
I've,
full face,
I've
not.
played
yeah.
I've played with every single one of them, and honestly, no shield is good for me. I mean, I'm not trying to call myself Jamie Benn or anything.
boo.
Anyways, but I mean, when I played, I did the full cage. I did the glass shields.
Yeah.
I did the half shields. I did different kinds of half shields.
When I
And-
was a little guy, I thought the glass shield for a player was like the coolest freaking
That's
thing
exactly.
in the world.
That's how I did. That's how I thought too.
I
Yeah.
can't tell you why. I couldn't give you a good reason,
Mighty
today.
Ducks.
but it just looked cool. I thought it was just fucking cool.
Yeah. Same with my Legos.
It
I
was
always
like-
loved those helmets with the shields on them.
It was like HD Live. I'm kidding. I'm good. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, like I
It's
said,
so much crisper.
I tried half cage, a half shield, like just a half shield, different kinds of half shields. And which actually leads me into my next question for both of you. You see different goalie helmets. Well, we haven't really talked about goalie helmets too much. So you see different like goalie cages in like different arrangements. Like how does that work out for you guys?
James, I'll let you lead, man.
All right, yeah, no, and this is something that one of my first helmet I bought was what we call a waffle, which is just the standard grid,
Yeah.
and I got used to that, and that was okay. And then once I switched to a cat eye cage, which is what you see in the NHL,
Yeah.
I understood why people do it.
Yes.
And it's because you can see the puck around your feet. You can see basically where you want to look is clear. Whereas with a waffle cage, you can see, and you can see through the cage, but it's just your eyes are working and focusing on different things and trying to find gaps in the waffle cage to focus on. And that split second of being able to find something or not really does matter, even in the lowest league of hockey. And knowing where the puck is, and I have, since I went from a waffle cage to a cat eye cage to, I had to buy an emergency helmet from one of my other helmets failing, and when I went back to the waffle, I probably had 3 games where I just could not track the puck. I could not see what was going on, and it was so hard. And now that I've gone back to the cat eye, I just can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that is it. I mean, when you talk about goalies, probably the number one asset is your vision, and seeing the puck. And when you have something that impedes that, even at the smallest level, it's really interesting. And that's why I love goalie masks, and especially watching the evolution throughout the years and the different things that they tried.
Oh yeah.
And I think a
Oh,
couple
yeah.
of years ago, there was somebody who was trying out a shield as goalies, which I'm just like, no. And their whole idea was, we have a product that's strong enough to hold up to the strongest of clappers. But just having that cage there and things like that, and I have had sticks go in through my eye hole.
Oh.
Because a puck can't make it, but a
Bukkake
stick
2.0.
can.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that's where and luckily it didn't get my eye or anything, but the fact that it was in there was very scary. And
yeah, I can imagine.
and that's whenever there's that kind of hacking and whacking in a beer league, you kind of, once the whistle goes, you give them a come on, bud. Like I'm a person down
just
here.
got it,
We all
right?
got to go to work tomorrow. Come on. And usually they're pretty good about it.
Oh well.
I know that for me, when I same thing, like I was like, oh sweet, I'm old enough to wear a visor. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna wear a visor. And then I was like, oh shit, now I'm in a beer league where I don't know the other guys on the ice. Like I'm gonna get high sticked and get a tooth knocked out so easily right now. And so I went back to the cage to sacrifice a little bit of vision for keeping all my teeth and not getting more scars because I couldn't trust people out there.
Weenie.
Yeah,
that-
maybe. But also I'm allowed to play all 3 periods and not screw my team over by needing to go to the hospital halfway through.
Plus, you got all them pearly whites still.
I
so.
still do.
That is that is one difference when you compare, like visors and stuff, players as opposed to goalies. Like for you guys as players, it's yeah, I might lose a tooth or I might,
literally
need
get
some stitches.
Yeah,
For goalies, it's just as simple as just vision. How well we're
Yeah.
going to be just as protected no matter what we choose. But James couldn't have said it better, man. Between the waffle and the cat eye, my first two helmets were waffles. My very first waffle
Herbe
was
style, right?
that my team provided for me. And then my second was that actually my mom got me, and that was my first fancy helmet that had like a monster design, and it was like
yeah, I
painted or
remember
whatever.
that.
The one that I brought with me
Yeah.
when we still played
Yeah.
together, Cody.
Yep.
That was my second, and then my third was a cat eye, which I wear now in beer league, and that's when I got a big boy job and I was able to afford my own cat eye.
A big boy job.
and cat eye, like 100%, huge difference.
I could imagine.
Once
I
you go
mean,
cat, you never go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you tried a certified cat eye?
I got it.
Because there are certified ones which are small enough to not allow a stick in.
Yeah,
And,
so
oh my, I got rid of mine so quick. I just decided that I'm done because after getting adjusted to a non-certified cat eye, I'm like, whatever, let a stick hit me in the eye. This ain't worth it.
So
there were too many blind spots.
okay, so interesting. So I bought a Vaughn. Again, I'm bad with the models. I can't remember what model it was, but I made sure it was certified. And I don't know why. It was like a comfort thing for me or something. But I made sure that I bought a Vaughn certified cat eye helmet.
Well, you're talking to Jersey addicts, so we're all in on the authentic or certified shit. So don't even worry.
I wish I
Came
didn't
loose
know
all
the
that.
difference between replica, certified authentic,
Yeah,
so
authentic replica, and
yeah,
replica authentic. But I do.
Sometimes
So,
sometimes ignorance is bliss.
I'll be honest. The reason why I look for certified is I'm a gear dummy. I'm like, I don't know a lot about it. I just kind of like read some shit on Google, this and that, and like whatever makes sense, I buy. The reason why I looked for a certified cat eye was because I was under the impression that a non-certified could be a tad bit bigger in the cat eye version. So say like a freak accident happens and the puck somehow ends up flying a certain way, you can still get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was very like, no, I need to find a certified one. So that doesn't
I didn't know
happen.
there was a difference. I actually thought the cat eyes the NHL players played with were still big enough to allow like pucks to go through or something, and they were just always taking the risk.
James, you got any knowledge on that?
Yeah, the certified has to do with if a stick can fit through that hole. And so it matters more in youth hockey where they try to protect, the younger players and I've heard stories of, 16-year-old goalies not being allowed to wear their helmet and having to wear, the backup goalie's helmet or something in more competitive younger leagues. And you need certifications and it's all for safety. But there are off-brand, cage makers that make things that are great for visibility. And that's the thing with sometimes with these, it's funny with these well-respected brands of whether it be Bauer or Vaughn or anybody like that, where they actually don't make the best helmets or visors for your equipment. And some guy with a TIG welder in his garage makes a much better cage for your equipment. And that even this whole rabbit hole of masks and what comes down to what your masks is made out of was through a frustration of mine, which was the lesson I learned the hard way, which was I had my original waffle board mask or, waffle cage mask, and it started to rust out on me a little bit. I wasn't very good with my gear back in those days, would just kind of throw it back in the bag when I was done and let it be what it was. And it started to rust on me. And so I started looking for a cat eye cage, mainly because I wanted to look cool and look like the NHL guys.
Obviously.
And I learned I was wearing basically the reason that my mask was I bought it for such a steal was because it was nicknamed the Widowmaker. And I thought
Oh,
that
shit.
headaches and ringing ears were a normal
Common.
part of being a goaltender. I was just like, oh yeah, you're a goalie. You get hit with the puck. This sucks. And once I learned how bad my mask was, and this is something they sell over this is something that guys don't even recommend for ball hockey. They're like,
Wow.
if you're playing, if you're playing ball hockey in this thing, like you can still get ringers. And so I ended up going with a respectable mask maker. And the crazy thing about this is even at the pro level, it's just like usually some guy who makes masks. It's not like a huge corporation. It's
So-
it's just some guy who makes masks out of tough materials.
Yeah,
And
he's
so I
just
went from the worst to a, carbon fiber Kevlar epoxy mix. And I started taking just absolute bangers off the mask. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, my ears don't ring for 2 days after playing hockey. And oh, wait, I feel a whole lot clearer at work. And I realized, oh, wait, you only get one brain. Spending a couple extra $100 for something that is at an appropriate level is definitely worth it.
It's like,
And that's kind of where I got obsessed with masks.
yeah, like,
Interesting, man. One other thing I want to ask you about masks. So, obviously, like some of the older goalies, such as Artur Zirbe, Osgood, Hasek, those guys, they wore a particular type of mask. And there was actually an interview back in the day with Artur Zirbe. Some of the locals asked, "Why don't you wear the masks that today's goalies wear? So masks that we wear today,
So like
And-
less the Cooper helmet with the waffle cage and more like the form factor.
They call it
yeah.
a combo mask.
Yep. And Artur Zirbe's response was, because it makes me feel like I'm in a wood barrel. What's your comment on those masks? Because like I said, the guy like Artur Zirbe was like 100% against it. He said it makes him feel like he's in a wood barrel. Like, to me, when I think about it, like I would feel like his mask would make me feel like I'm in a wood barrel. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, it's interesting too because even in the Urbe era, the amount that those guys would go down and really face a shot, it has to do with the style of goaltending. And now that guys are on their knees facing shots so much more and using the head as as another tool for blocking, it's really designed for, the Urbe style helmet was, and it's different because he came up with it, but that was a stand-up style helmet. You were supposed to, your head was above the net, so if they hit you in the face, they miss. Whereas if somebody hits you in the face right now, they didn't necessarily miss. You were just in between them and the net. And so the masks now are designed much more for the transfer of energy from a full-on clapper. And I think the vision is better because a lot of those typical masks, or, those combo masks, are also the waffle style. And I would feel a bit naked. I would feel a bit weird in them. I haven't ever worn one, but through the four masks I've worn, but it also comes down to just how much time you spend in something. It's comfort, and that's where one of the more interesting stories I read was on Patrick Marleau, and he's actually running out of his skates because he's used the same skates for the last like 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And when they stopped making them, he actually bought out their entire stock of his size. And so he had like 200 of these skates because he knew he had a lot of career left. And there was when he was in Toronto, I remember reading a story about he's down to his last like 7 pairs and he only had X amount of them. And every off season he would try different gear and he just didn't like it. And he would have, Reebok, I think, made them. Reebok would try again and again to kind of recreate that in a modern style, and he would wear them off season and he would try them out, but he just preferred the feel of whatever his skates were. And so there's a big thing to say for whatever you feel most comfortable in, and I think that kind of brings this all full circle, is that it's whatever you're comfortable with. Some goalies like sending rebounds far, some of them like smothering the puck. and the puck to kind of die and when it hits off of you. And those are all things kind of you can communicate to your gear manufacturer in order to the build, and especially the pros driving this, is the pros giving them feedback of what they like and what they don't like. And that's the very interesting thing about custom goalie gear, because even though whatever they're wearing in the pros, it looks like what you can buy off the shelves, but the amount of modifications and tweaks that the pros have for their own gear is very interesting. And so you can buy some gear that is the same manufacturer, same brand, same size for, let's say, like a Braden Holtby and a Martin Jones. They've got the same gear, but it's completely different. And that's the crazy thing. And it all comes down to your play style and what you're comfortable with. And it was kind of nice seeing with the bubble, seeing all these goalies. There's a very interesting split in the gear manufacturers right now between CCM and Lefebvre, with their where Lefebvre was a design shop working with CCM, and now they've split. And a lot of the goalies during the bubble, when they were getting back in, were trying out different gear. And even what you see in the NHL, it comes down to licensing. And there's a couple of guys with helmets and masks where they have to wear tape because the small mask manufacturer can't afford for the licensing rights for his logo to be on NHL games. And so they actually have a little piece of athletic tape over it, but it's the goalies are wearing something that isn't authorized. It meets the specs for professional play, but they don't have, they're not willing to pay for the licensing rights for their company logo to be on there. And so it's cool knowing a lot about that and the goalies, but it all just comes down to preference. And so hearing that Artis Urbe felt a certain way in a certain type of mask, it absolutely makes sense. And it trying to make a change sometimes doesn't work for guys, and sometimes it does. And it just comes down to preference, because when there's a forward bearing down on you with the puck, the last thing you want to be thinking about is your gear. And I can tell you in multiple times where I've had to try something else out, or maybe a toe tie broke on my gear and I didn't have, the refs push the game along. You just feel uncomfortable and you feel like you let in bad goals because you're thinking about something other than just focusing on the puck and what's going on around you.
That makes sense. I like that Patrick were you going to say something?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, well, I think James just called when Patrick Marleau is going to retire.
Yeah.
When he runs out of his
skates.
skates.
Basically, that's the inside scoop there.
Right.
And I was actually going to comment on that whole story because I love that example, because I worked at Sport Check in Canada, which is like Dick's Sporting Goods, but for Canada. And I remember going through the training of selling skates to people. And basically it came down to like the reason why these different companies are allowed to make different hockey skates is because they have each manufacturer can do whatever they want to the skate, but what they can't do is the pitch of your foot in that skate. So like what angle your foot will rest in from the front toe to the back heel, flat or at what angle, was all referenced to the manufacturer. And so what was interesting was like I would have people, and then once I knew that, I didn't know if it was psychological or real at that point, but like I grew up on Bauer skates. I bought one pair of Eastons during college when I had no money. And I'm not saying Easton skates suck. I'm just saying because they weren't what I was using, I hated them. And then I learned about that, and I went back to Bauer and I was like, oh, it's less about, well, it is definitely the skate, but also it's the brand and like what they can control at that point. So I like that Marleau story because it made me realize like, oh yeah, I 100% can buy that story because I never want to skate on Easton skates, and I never want to skate on anything other than Bauer's ever again.
Yeah.
That's interesting on skates too, and I don't know if James agrees with me or not, but a big skate name back in the day was Graf.
Yeah.
Oh,
every cool fucking goalie had the Graf skate. You know what I mean? And then like I still got like coaches that I keep in touch from time to time that like we would talk and they'd say, yeah, if one thing I could bring back would be the graph skate.
And you know what's weird about goalie skates is like now that you mention it, I remember there was like kind of this evolution where it was like a skate that you'd put in a shoe to make it a goalie skate.
Yeah.
And then you had like the shoe-ish form factor, but it was a goalie skate. And then you had goalie skates. And just to bring it full circle, like a story that came out during this playoffs was like Robin Leonard lost a blade in one of his skates, and it then happened like a period later again, and they're like, come on, I thought new skates were like way better than this. And it came out that it's like actually he's using skates from like 4 years ago because he loves them and doesn't want to change to something new. So I get it.
It really comes down to, you know, what you're comfortable in, and you just don't want to be thinking about it. And those, I know you've seen it multiple times where the skate pops out, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like those clip out skates, is because, you know, in the NHL you might get a whistle, or you might get, you know, you have a equipment manager who can come out and give you a fix really quick. Whereas if it's 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night and I'm in my beer league, nobody cares. You know, they're gonna drop the puck and say figure it out.
Yeah.
And so it's going with what's bomb proof. But you know, the biggest change right now going on in goalie skates is really in the last couple of years has been those pop out blades where there's almost a trigger you pull and you can release it, and that's caused a lot of issues. But it's also probably on the other side is guys can have multiple sets of steel sitting on the ice, and so they can have a fresh edge. And if they're used to a fresh edge, you know, because one of the biggest things that gets me, and I always, as a beer leaguer, I hate it, is when when I have to slide to a post, and rather than catching it with my toe, I catch it with my blade.
Sure.
And then I just create a dead spot
Yep.
in my skate. And especially once I had and I kind of, it's funny because I usually go, you know, 12 to 20 games, depending on how my schedule works out between sharpenings.
Oh, you're fucking lucky.
And yeah. Well, we have a sharpener right across the street, or we did for a long time, and so that's where, as I would just wait for a favorable time, and I would get him to resharpen. But you would get dead spots in your skates, and that's where you would kind of learn to play around it on the fly. But once you got too many of those dead spots, you wouldn't have confidence, because I definitely have times where I push off with my toe and times where I push off with my heel, and it's just knowing where I have good edge left.
Oh,
and that's I'm sure on the NHL level, if they get one nick in those things, being able to change those at a TV break or anything was huge.
They're gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that part of the pro level always got to me a little bit. I was like clearly never good enough to be anywhere close to that level, but I always kind of wished that I was like, well, I wish I could get my ice resurfaced after every period, because that would probably be nicer.
Always super jealous.
You
of
know,
that.
like I wish I could have my skates sharpened sharp every game, because I was that guy. That's actually why I took that job at Sport Check, was just because I got free skate sharpening like all the fucking time. So it was pretty dope. But yeah, like, so anyway.
Speaking of ice sharpening, where do you sharp your skates at? What's your preference?
I go with a 5/8 standard cut.
Yes.
You know, I had an aggressive. So I actually switched to step steel, which is a taller blade, because it helped my attack angle. Those are the two things that I did with my pads to make them better for me, because as I'm less flexible than people that do the splits, you know, 7 days a week. The knee block is something that allows your pads to lay flat on the ice without your legs being at a 90-degree angle. So I actually have taller knee blocks, and then I have longer blades on my skate, because it allows me to have less of an angle required in order for me to catch an edge. And so, especially in the fly, you make one save, but then you've got to push across to the other side of the crease. I found it to be more advantageous to have that lower attack angle, and it also keeps my backside leg closer to the ice to seal off if the puck gets kicked into the middle of the ice. And so, but the 5/8 has been standard because I did sharpen them. I forget the exact sharpening, but I did go much more aggressive on the edge. And what I found was it got dull too quickly. And also when I was just when the defensemen were passing amongst each other, trying to look for an angle, and I was moving across the crease, I started to catch up my edges a little bit, and it was just so different to me that I didn't like it. And so as soon as my edges were done, I went back to the 5/8.
That's cool, man. Yeah, because I'm the reason why I like 5/8 is because I am it's not too sharp, but it's also not too dull. That's what I like about 5/8 for myself.
And it holds an edge much longer than anything more aggressive. Anything more aggressive, 2 games, and you really need to go back to it, or you need to get used to it. And you get these kind of weird spots where your spots where you're used to putting the pressure, it starts to dull there. So then you kind of start moving your, either more forwards or more backwards to catch fresh edge. And it's not what you want to be thinking about when you're making moves and people are bearing down on you is, hey, where can I put pressure on this skate? And I know I'm going to get an edge. You just want to be comfortable being able to push off and know that you're going to catch ice.
Are all you tendies taking notes out there, by the way? You might want to be writing this down. Well,
this is all very useful.
Yeah,
you're also making me realize, like, I completely want to disagree with myself from earlier about, like, players not having as many quirks about their gear as goalies. Because as you keep talking, I'm like, every time I got a new pair of skates, I did get them profiled. I did get them sharpened to this eighth.
You can see it on his face, too. Just like when when everybody else is talking, he's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, these things keep popping in my head. Fuck.
Yeah, now you guys know how it feels. I was quiet this whole time when you guys started at the beginning, and now all of you are quiet because we're going back to
we're
back.
going deep down the goalie fandom and gear preferences, and that's where we're going. Don't worry, we'll steer them
like,
that
what
way.
are you wearing right now? Right?
Nothing much. What about you? Oh, just some Bauer XR77s. Hot. I've got the Vaughn Trapper, from 09, like the ZR634. Oh, I'm almost there.
Are you talking spring 20 or fall 2020?
We're talking.
Well, we do.
We're talking early.
We do
winter.
in the goalie community. We do have fapping videos, which is when you can close your trapper and it makes that nice little whap.
Oh,
whap,
that's
whap.
awesome.
And they call it a fapping video, and people say, they're like, oh, does that, and that's a thing in the goalie community. Is like, oh man, that thing seals tight.
Oh,
that is, check this out. This is fresh from the manufacturer. Broken in. Look at this fap.
Oh my god.
We get into it. We get weird with us.
So there's like the Jersey Attic Mail Day where we're bragging about what we just got, and then there's the goalie equipment FAP Day.
The FAP Day. Yeah. Oh yeah.
We get the unboxing and the fapping. So we get the next level. Yeah.
So you guys are like double time. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
You got unboxing and fapping day. Oh wow.
Well, man, I mean, we've talked about a lot of gear and whatnot, but I guess to kind of finish up everything, what would be your ultimate gear to have if you had all the money in the world, man? Like, what would be the gear that you would get for yourself right now?
I have to say, I would go with, as far as gear, I would go with Brian's. I know I'm in CCM right now, but Brian's just absolutely knocks it out of the park with their stitching. I know Bauer, it's funny because the performance side is almost secondary to what
The
you can
style.
do with the styling. Yeah, and it's more bragging rights, especially in beer league, is how stylish you look. And if you can match the skill level with it. But Brian's, they've always been top notch on their customization and also communicating with the customer, from what I've heard. As far as making sure that the pads fit correctly, that they handle, as far as the custom, that's their whole thing, is they're the custom goalie company, and they make that kind of stuff. But there'd be that, and then masks. As long as the protection's there, then there's a couple of mask artists, which is like, that's a whole part of why everybody wants to be a goalie, is just the designs
Oh,
of their
definitely.
pads.
Dave
And
art.
everybody thinks it's cool. Dave art. But even Dave art, he does the coolest, most realistic stuff. But then there's goalies with just a very simplistic, cool design. I mean, you got to throw it back to Felix Potvin for the most
That's what I was gonna
iconic.
say. Cat eyes
the
plus
most
Potvin.
Yeah, exactly. That style, or based off of it, is just so cool, and that's where, as goalies, as the NHL season ramps up, and even during the bubble when goalies were trying different styles everybody was just so obsessed with what graphics they were trying.
Yeah.
And like, it's just part of the whole look, and it's cool with it. But I've always been a Brian's guy. And as far as protection, they're a defunct company, but Hakva is my preferred mask, the way that it fits my head.
Wow, that's digging deep.
Yeah, they make, that's the thing, is they make tanks. And they make tanks, but there's a couple of different artists out there, and there's some smaller, even mask painters out there that are doing some really cool stuff. I've got a new guy. His name's Trace Armstrong. Does Faro goaltending, and he does like a lot of gold inlays in his masks with clear coats, and he does, his stylistic kind of genre is more based out of the 80s, where it was bold colors. And so I think Dave art masks are amazing, and they're pieces of artwork, but it doesn't necessarily show up on the broadcast. Whereas in the 80s, they had these kind of bold, strong lines with the team colors, and they converged in a certain way that was more preferable. And so I kind of like the meshing of those two, where you can use really cool style to do amazing stuff, but have those bold lines to where the mask really makes a statement. But yeah, that's kind of where I would go, would be a Potvin style mask that's, you can see from the cheap seats, and then some custom Brian's gear.
Well, beauty, man.
That's awesome, dude. I was gonna say Brian's gear is something that I'm exploring right now, because that's bends to the knee and stuff that we talked about earlier. But then when it goes to masks, one thing, check out, there's a local guy here in Colorado, Defender Masks. He makes some amazing cat eyes. So if you want to check it out online, Defender Masks, you might be interested in those guys. Just a little promotion.
Goalies are crazy people. Is Vic still a company now that everyone realized that's Civ backwards? Like, are they?
I've never heard of them.
You've never heard of Vic?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm dating myself right now. Yeah, no, that's what like Brodeur used to wear, and then all of a sudden it like completely fell off the earth.
They were there. I know what you're talking about. They were there, and then they weren't anymore. I can't tell you what happened to them. I think they just went bankrupt.
Yeah, maybe someone else bought them.
They
or something.
fucked up.
It was just
something
like,
happened, but they were gone. So,
I mean, it's funny that they're able to. I mean, you look at like TPX and Louisville and Nike used to make. Like you look at all these people that have tried to make a name for themselves in the hockey community, but really only a couple have stayed true. True, which is like CCM and Bauer, probably the two biggest that kind of go back and forth. Maybe Vaughn.
Well, yeah, and absolutely, and then even think about like Reebok. You know, Reebok ended up doing like a thing with Coho. You know, it never was Reebok; it was mainly Coho when you think about it.
Yeah, and you had Nike by Bauer. Apparently, Vic is now owned by Pure Hockey. So these companies
yeah,
get like
yeah,
So it's
bought
like,
up. You know,
so
a bit.
like it's like your
Reebok owns CCM.
you know, like for us Coloradans, like it's like when you go to King Supers, it's like the Kroger brand stuff.
Yeah, yeah. they're all basically just held by
And-
a fucking great god in the sky, basically.
Gigantic conglomerate. And
Yeah.
and back to James's point, that maybe makes sense too, where it's like, oh, but that dude playing net right now has the bomb ass gear from the local farmer. This is the organic grown. This is the no GMO.
The real
added.
deal.
This is the real deal. And like, sorry, I didn't pay for the licensing to show my brand on TV, but like, this is the shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You get like coveted in a sport mask, and these guys that like on the protection level, because that's the thing that I've found is that the name brands, when it comes to protection for the head, are so far behind what other people are doing, and that's because they're willing to take risks that big corporations aren't really willing to take. And then a couple years down the line they start making some stuff, but usually for the cost, you can get a pro protection level mask for $500 from one of these brands. But if you go for the corporate one that ripped off their style and their formulation, it's going to cost you $1,200 to $1,500. And so it's especially in the beer league goalie community, you see a lot of that stuff. And I mean, that's where, I mean, not to throw like Bauer under the bus, but it's like that enemy 3, like there's probably some damage there that will rear its head, from my first 2 years of playing hockey and taking ringers in that thing, thinking that, hey, I got a name brand, I should be okay.
No, you're
and it was
absolutely
really on
right.
me.
Because when the first initial concussion reports were coming out about like concussion in sport, and they were looking at all sports, the same center that was doing the studies on football helmets with Riddell was doing it with hockey helmets with CCM, Bauer, Reebok. And you know what was the best tested helmet was a $65 helmet from Warrior. And then all of a sudden, like, Warrior became the helmet to use, and you don't really see Warrior as a brand in hockey other than gloves, because I think they started as a lacrosse company, and helmets as again an offshoot of the lacrosse situation. But they came from a sport where you were throwing an Indian rubber ball at each other at like 80 miles an hour, and that fucking hurt. So I guess they figured it out. So
yeah,
it's just
and
interesting.
they make really great beer league pads too, and that's the funny thing. But they'll never pay for the licensing for NHL, and that's why you never see. It's one of these things where they make great, rec league and high level rec league goalie pads, but you'll never see them in the NHL because they'll never pay for the licensing for any pros to really use them.
Well said. Well, you know what, James? I think we've got an episode, bud.
Yeah,
We've talked a lot about gear. This one's gonna be for all the goalies out there.
Oh yeah,
The fucking
and the gearheads.
all right. So James, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me,
Yeah,
talking with us, man.
Absolutely, guys. Anytime you want me back, it was an absolute blast. We can talk about Leonard leaving one leg down and opening up some holes and all that good stuff. Absolutely, and his stylistic matchups, and that's I'm always down to talk it. And as long as everybody's rooting against the Golden Knights, we're all the same family here.
That's
Well,
great.
I mean, hey, no matter what, we all love the hockey. Well, thank you so much for being on. Do you want to send any shout outs to anybody?
I kind of did one earlier. Trace Armstrong, amazing graphic on my mask. Some gold inlay just to stunt on some people when I roll up to the next skate and shoot and end up on the wrong end of bukkake. From a
Oh
bunch
my
of,
God! Yeah.
That's That's what we do. Got to get one more bukkake drop in there.
James,
and,
that was I haven't laughed longer to a reference on this show since then. That was
Oh my God,
hilarious.
that was
I was
nuts.
laughing for
That's-
like a good
that's what it
5 minutes.
like-
That was hilarious.
Yeah, that's what it feels like at a skate and shoot. So respect your goaltenders. Let them put the posts in before you start firing.
Shoot low in warm-ups, people. Shoot low in warm-ups. Boys, you got any shout-outs to throw out there?
No shout outs for me. Thanks again, My Bear Nation. Thanks for letting us do the thing and getting us cool stuff to sell to people. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Same with me. I just want to say we've been working with Dog Nation recently. Our good friend Brandon Lyde has done an amazing job on a recap video of Dog Nation. So
Can we share that on our
we
YouTube,
can,
by the way?
yeah, we can. So man, you guys, if you want to see how money donated to a nonprofit related to making hockey a community effort, I mean, this video that Brandon made is absolutely incredible. So a big shout out to Brandon right now.
Oh,
Thank you
absolutely.
so much for being involved with Dog Bowl. Thank you so much for your time, and your work is incredible. And we'll make sure to share that on our channels with you guys to take a look at.
Absolutely. Ross?
I'd like to give a shout out to everybody on 9/11 about 19 years ago. Like, my heart goes out to you guys, the firefighters, the people just involved, policemen, everyone. Like, my heart goes out to you, and I'm sure everybody else on the bench with Beaks. But it was a very hard time in our nation, but the next day was one of the most, like, jubilant, like, supportive parts of our, like, comeback for that.
United as one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Never forget, and I guess we should have mentioned this. We are recording this episode of 9/11, so
Yeah.
Probably
yes,
one thing.
never
too.
forget.
Yeah.
Super appropriate shout out, Ross. Nice.
Well, yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah, I gotta say thanks to James, thanks to the boys on the bench, thanks to all our listeners, and we'll catch you next week. We love you all, and have fun, play some hockey, and maybe crack a beer open every now and then. So, Vihorsh, have a good one.
Till next time, boys
A bientôt.
and girls.
Auf
Bye-bye.
Wiedersehen.